Alright, I want to start this video with a question that I know has been floating around in various corners of the internet for as long as BTS has been a major cultural force. A question that gets asked in comment sections and on forums and in the replies of K-pop discussion accounts with a regularity that suggests it is not going away on its own. The question is this: how much creative control do BTS actually have? How much of what we hear and see from them, the music, the artistry, the direction, the sound, the choices that define who they are as artists, is genuinely theirs? And how much of it is the product of corporate machinery, of label direction, of Bang Si-hyuk at a desk somewhere deciding what BTS is going to be and handing down instructions that the members then execute? This question, in various forms and with various degrees of hostility depending on who is asking it, has followed BTS throughout their career. And today, through a podcast interview with one of the most credentialed music producers working in the industry right now, we have the most direct and most unambiguous answer to it that I have ever heard from someone in a position to actually know. And the answer is exactly what ARMY has always believed. BTS runs BTS. Jimin and his members are in control. And Ryan Tedar said so. Let me tell you who Ryan Tedar is for anyone who might not immediately recognize the name, because the weight of this confirmation depends entirely on understanding who is doing the confirming. Ryan Tedar is the lead vocalist and primary songwriter of OneRepublic, one of the most commercially successful bands of the past 2 decades. But his significance in the music industry extends far beyond his own band's output, because Ryan Tedar is one of the most in-demand songwriters and producers in popular music, full stop. His credits include work with Beyoncé, with Adele, with Taylor Swift, with Ed Sheeran, with U2, with Paul McCartney, with artists across virtually every genre and every level of the industry. He has won Grammy Awards. He has produced and written songs that have topped charts in multiple countries simultaneously. He is, by any objective measure, someone whose professional experience and industry relationships place him at the absolute highest level of what the global music business looks like from the inside. And Ryan Tedar, sitting on a podcast with Zach Sang, chose to talk about BTS. And specifically chose to talk about the nature of BTS's creative control over their own music and their own direction. And what he said is something that every person who has ever doubted Jimin's artistic autonomy needs to hear. He said, and I want to be precise about this because precision matters when we are talking about confirmation of something this significant, that BTS chooses everything themselves. The songs. The writers. The direction. He addressed the narrative that still circulates in some corners of the internet that suggests there is someone at HYBE, some corporate figure or some Bang PD directive, that ultimately controls what BTS does and how they do it. And he shut that narrative down. Not with opinion or with fandom enthusiasm but with the specific first-hand account of someone who has actually sat in rooms with the people involved and observed how the creative process works from the inside. He was not speculating. He was not interpreting. He was reporting. And what he reported is that only BTS leads BTS. The specific detail about what happened when Ryan was trying to submit songs for the Ararang album era is particularly illuminating, and I want to spend some time on it because it reveals something important not just about the creative control question but about the specific and extraordinary nature of how BTS operates as an artistic collective. Ryan said that during the period when the members were still completing their military service, he was sending songs and pitching material and essentially doing what producers and writers do when they are trying to contribute to a major project. He was being proactive. He was being enthusiastic. He had his inbox full of material and he was pushing it toward the project. And Bang Si-hyuk's response to this enthusiasm was not to say yes, these are great, let us put them in the album. It was to tell Ryan to slow down. To take it easy. Because the members were not back yet. And until the members were back, nobody knew what direction the album was going to take. Nobody knew what sound they were going to choose. Nobody knew what the musical identity of Ararang was going to be. Because those decisions were not going to be made by Bang PD or by HYBE executives or by any combination of industry professionals working on the project. Those decisions were going to be made by Jimin, by Jungkook, by RM, by Jin, by Suga, by J-Hope, by V. By the 7 members of BTS themselves, when they were ready and when they were together and when they had listened back to their own earlier music and found the thread that would lead them to whatever Ararang was going to become. Think about what that means. A Grammy-winning, multi-platinum producer trying to pitch material for a BTS album was told to wait because BTS had not decided yet what the album was going to be. Not HYBE had not decided. Not Bang PD had not decided. BTS had not decided. The members were the decision makers. They were the artistic authority. And the entire project, regardless of how much external talent and how many resources and how much industry infrastructure was surrounding it, was waiting on them. On their vision. On their creative direction. On whatever Jimin and his brothers were going to bring to the table when they came back from their service and sat down together and figured out what they wanted to say and how they wanted to say it. And the specific instruction that Bang PD apparently gave Ryan Tedar is one of the most revealing details in this entire story. He said go back and listen to BTS's early music. Listen to what they were doing in the beginning. And then find the connective tissue between that early music and the music they have been making more recently. And your job, as a collaborator, is to understand that thread and to serve it. Not to define it. Not to impose your own vision onto it. Not to bring what you think a BTS album should sound like based on your own aesthetic preferences or your commercial instincts or your experience with other artists. Your job is to understand what BTS already is and to help them realize more of it. Because the direction is theirs. It has always been theirs. And whatever you contribute is in service of that direction, not a replacement for it. That is an extraordinary thing for a label head to say to a producer of Ryan Tedar's caliber. It is an extraordinary thing for any executive in the music industry to say, because the normal dynamic tends to run in the opposite direction. Normally it is the label that has the clearest sense of where an artist's commercial direction should go, and the artist who is navigating between their own creative instincts and the commercial requirements that the label is pushing. The fact that the direction in BTS's case was coming from the members and that even a figure as senior and as accomplished as Bang Si-hyuk was positioning himself as a facilitator of their vision rather than an architect of it is a statement about the specific and unusual nature of the BTS creative relationship that I do not think gets enough attention in the broader conversation about who BTS is and how they work. Now let us bring Jimin specifically into this conversation, because this video is about him and because the implications of Ryan Tedar's confirmation are particularly significant when we think about Jimin's artistic journey and the specific ways in which his contributions to BTS and his solo work have been understood and discussed over the years. Jimin has been one of the most vocally ambitious and creatively involved members of BTS since very early in their career. His contributions to the group's artistic direction, to the choreographic identity of their performances, to the emotional register of their music, have been documented across years of behind-the-scenes content and interviews and commentary from the people who have worked with them. He is someone who has always had strong artistic convictions and a clear sense of what he wants from his music, even when that clarity has required difficult conversations and difficult choices. The solo era has been the most vivid demonstration of this. The Face album, which Jimin has spoken about in terms of genuine artistic struggle and genuine creative risk, was not a product that emerged from label direction or commercial calculation. It was the product of Jimin sitting with his own questions about himself as an artist and as a person and deciding that those questions deserved honest answers in the form of music. The process took 10 months. It was filled with uncertainty and with the specific difficulty of trying to make something true rather than something safe. And what emerged was an album that broke historical records not because it was engineered to do so but because it resonated with people in the way that only genuinely personal art can resonate. Like Crazy at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 was not the result of a label calculating the correct formula for a chart-topping single. It was the result of Jimin making the music that he needed to make an army and the broader listening public recognizing something real in it. And Ryan Tedar's confirmation, his statement that BTS chooses their songs and their writers and their direction, retroactively validates everything that those of us who have been watching Jimin closely have understood about his creative process. The Face album was Jimin's choice. The direction of his solo work was Jimin's choice. The decision to make music that is emotionally honest rather than commercially optimized was Jimin's choice. And the Erarang album, the group comeback that the entire world has been responding to with such extraordinary enthusiasm, is BTS's collective choice. Including Jimin's choice. including whatever specific contributions and perspectives and convictions Jimin brought to the table when the members came back from military service and sat down to figure out what this album was going to be. The songs that Ryan Tedar mentioned as having emerged from the process he described, Swim, Please, Normal, Body to Body, these are all tracks from the Ararang era that fans have been responding to with deep emotional investment. And knowing now that these songs exist because BTS waited until they could make their own decisions about what the album needed, because they refused to let the process begin in earnest until they were in the room and their voices were the guiding voices, gives those songs an additional layer of meaning. Every note of Ararang is there because BTS decided it should be there. Every lyric reflects what they chose to say. Every production choice was made in alignment with a creative direction that came from them, from Jimin and his 6 members, not from an executive at a label desk. I also want to address the specific framing that Ryan used when he said that only BTS leads BTS, and just a reminder for the people in the back, because those two phrases together, placed back to back the way Ryan placed them, are doing something important rhetorically. The first phrase, only BTS leads BTS, is a statement of fact about how the creative authority is structured within the BTS organizational context. It is saying that the artistic decision-making power lives with the members and nowhere else. The second phrase, just a reminder for the people in the back, is Ryan Tedar acknowledging that this fact is not universally known or universally accepted. That there are people who still believe the narrative that suggests HYBE or Bang PD or some other external force is pulling the strings on BTS's creative output. And he is addressing those people directly. He is saying, I have been in the room. I have watched how this works. And I am telling you, from direct first-hand experience, that the version of the story you have been telling yourself is wrong. For the people in the BTS community and for ARMY members who have spent years having this argument with people who insisted that BTS was a manufactured product controlled by corporate interests, Ryan Tedar's statement is the kind of confirmation that changes conversations. Because Ryan Tedar has no stake in this argument. He is not an ARMY member. He is not a BTS enthusiast trying to defend the group from criticism. He is a professional collaborator who worked on the project and observed the process and is reporting what he saw. And what he saw was Jimin and his members in creative control of everything. Not performing creative control for the cameras. Not being given an approved list of choices and allowed to select from it. Actually choosing. Actually directing. Actually waiting until they were ready, until their vision was clear, until they knew what they wanted to say, and then saying it on their own terms. The podcast context is also worth noting because Zach Sang, the host, has conducted some of the most substantive music industry interviews in recent years and has a reputation for drawing out genuine candor from his guests rather than polished talking points. The fact that this conversation happened in that context, in a space where honest reflection is the norm rather than the exception, adds to the credibility of what Ryan said. This was not a prepared statement or a PR talking point. It was a collaborator reflecting honestly on an experience and sharing what that experience taught him about the nature of BTS's creative authority. And what it taught him is exactly what it has always been true. BTS leads BTS. Jimin and his members are in control. And now a Grammy-winning producer who was there said so. There is also something I want to say about what this confirmation means for the way we understand Jimin's artistry going forward, because I think it reframes some things that might have been ambiguous before. Every creative choice that Jimin has made, every direction his music has taken, every risk he has taken in his solo work and every contribution he has made to BTS's collective output, happened because Jimin made those choices. Not because he was directed to. Not because he was following a formula handed to him by professionals who understood the market better than he did. Because he is an artist with genuine vision who has always known what he wanted to create and has always had the authority and the will to create it. That is who ParkJimin is. That is who he has always been. And Ryan Tedar, sitting on a podcast, just made sure that anyone who was not already certain of that fact now has no excuse not to be. The Ararang album is the product of 7 artists who waded through the most significant pause of their career, through military service and the particular kind of patience that requires, until they could come back and make the music they wanted to make on their own terms. Jimin waited. He served. He came back. And then he and his brothers sat down and decided what Ararang was going to be. And the world heard the result and responded with the kind of global enthusiasm that only genuinely personal, genuinely artist-controlled music can generate. Because people can hear the difference. People can feel the difference between music that comes from an authentic creative vision and music that was assembled by committee to optimize commercial outcomes. And Ararang sounds like the former because it is the former. Ryan Tedar told us so. And Jimin and his music have been showing us so for as long as he has been making it. Only BTS leads BTS. Just a reminder for the people in the back. And now, courtesy of one of the most credentialed voices in the music industry, there is no longer any reason for anyone to pretend otherwise. Thank you for watching this video all the way through. Please hit the like button if this confirmation gave you the satisfaction that it gave me. Leave a comment below with your reaction to what Ryan Tedar said because I genuinely want to know how this landed for you. Subscribe to the channel if you are not already here because there is so much more Ararang era content coming and we need to be here together for all of it, and take care of yourselves. Purple you always. Purple heart.